Good evening. This is Penelope Flynn, co-host, moderator of Discussions from the Otherhood. I'm here with the rest of your Blerdsassins Next Door. We've got Sonia, Roxanne Cranston, and Nikki. And tonight we are going to be talking about the verdict. No, not that verdict, but the verdict that came along based on our thoughts, processes, and our opinions of the legal system that are shaped by what we've seen in television media, in film, shows, and sometimes I guess even, some of this so-called news. So before we get started, we're going to talk a bit about the weather. Cranston, your top center, how is your weather?
It has been a continuation of last week. We have been averaging at highs in the mid 80s and lows in the 70s, which is strangely cooler than you would think it would be to be 70. And but no rain, and other than that, it's been pretty good. So no heat advisories yet. Nobody's been uh, passed out from heat exposure so far.
Hmm.
So fingers crossed. So far, so good.
All right. And how about you, Nikki? What's the weather like?
The weather was pretty good today. It looked like it was gonna rain a lot, but it just didn't. It would get cloudy, then the sun would come out again, it stayed in it stayed into the mid like upper 80s today.
Cool. I'm glad you're all getting good weather. Good growing
Yes,
weather. Whoa, I'm getting a lot of sort of wind in the
that's my
thing.
fan. I'm not turning it off. I'm sorry. It's hot.
We'll just mute in between.
Okay,
All
I'm
right.
gonna mute right now.
Cool. Okay, and Otto, how's your weather?
I would say the hot Cheetos are not good. I just want to let you guys know. They're horrible.
Wow, they are?
They don't make them the way they used to. The weather today was
Wow.
it was rainy and kind of like mid upper 70s, maybe 80. And it's been raining for like all this week. But I like the rain, so it's been pretty good.
Cool. All right, Roxanne, did you get rain? You all are.
No, it was rather nice today, and though we've had rain off and on this past week, so nobody's thirsty. But we're supposed to be getting high winds. Um, I guess it's supposed to happen in about an hour or so. So that'll be interesting.
So, has anyone else had like tornado, gale force type of weather this week like we've had?
No.
Wow, we're the only ones, huh?
Yeah,
Okay, well,
but
Sonia, what did you get, Sonia? If you all didn't get that.
It was actually a nice day today because it got down to like in the 40s past 2 days, and today it was up in around 80. And tomorrow it's
Wow.
supposed to rain, so we'll see what happens. But hopefully, I'll be inside and I can listen to them complain about how hot it is at 80, and I can start laughing again.
All right. Okay.
okay, but
So,
one other last weather thing is today is the beginning of the hurricane season, which will run from now until November 30th.
wow,
It's
that's a long
meteorological
season.
summer. Yeah.
Wow, long, long hurricane season.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, I want to get right on into it. I rush through the weather so we get right into the verdict, which is we're not going to talk about that verdict, but a little bit about how it is that people appear to be affected by it and how it is that people's points of view regarding the legal system are shaped by what we see on television. Let's face it, most of us, when we think about the legal system, we realize that the vast majority of what we know, before we went into our professions was shaped by what we saw on television. I mean, everybody says, "What's a lawyer?" You think, Perry Mason, that's a lawyer. Matlock, that's a lawyer. Films, the film, The Verdict. Um, these are attorneys, and that's how we believe law um, is projected on the screen and what our expectations are in real life based on that. Even, let's say, the legal proceedings that they have filmed or they're simulcasting, is that really how it is, or is it, more Heisenberg, that these things are shifted, changed somehow based on the fact that there's a camera there. So, I guess Cranston,
Well, no,
your top.
Penelope, there were actually 34 verdicts. We're not going to talk about that, but
Hmm. So
so
I mean, even with that, the whole point is the people who received that information, how they reacted to it. I mean, and those of us who lived through the O.J. Simpson trials, saw that same type of thing, when he's found not guilty, the people who are watching these proceedings, I mean, day by day by day, point by point by point, and still act as if they're surprised at the verdict when all the evidence is being rolled out right in front of them, and they think somehow this is like a television show, that something will go on like in 12 Angry Men, that someone will be sitting inside the jury's room, kind of manipulating outcomes. So that that thing. I mean, I was saying earlier that one of our relatives was looking, she was treating one of her patients. When the ruling came down, the person started crying. It's like, you don't even know this guy. I mean, you're not a member of your family, never did anything for you. Why that reaction? I mean, you could have some reactions like, "Oh man, I can't believe this," but tears, why are people so invested in these things, invested in the process in and of itself? So, just want to put it out there. And Cranston, like I said, you're in the middle. So, what legal, I guess, media shaped your perception of the law and how it is that you think these particular cases and things of that ilk come out? How does it affect your perception? That's basically it.
Well, basically, growing up in the a long time ago, when television was new and they were black and white and they were no bigger than your laptop screen, that it was like it was a magic window, and everything on television was like the original reality TV. You believed whatever you saw, that's the way it was. It wasn't until later you find out that virtually every profession says the way they're depicted in popular media is incorrect. But I believed all of the things about, the police are your friends. They only get people if you did something wrong. And everybody gets a fair shake when they get to
Hmm.
court. And so everything was like that. And I believe that, that you had if some things are still kind of true, if you have the right lawyer, you can still get off. And you believe that there was this one person who could, see through all the obfuscation and everything, and they could get to the truth, and they would have the guilty party would always crack under pressure and
Hmm.
confess to their crime, and justice will prevail. It wasn't until I got much older that I realized that all you had to do was when Perry Mason said, "Because you did it," and you just had to say, "Wasn't me," and then that would have been, you would have gotten away with it. If you don't confess, say, well, wasn't me. Somebody else, wasn't me. I wasn't me. Wasn't me. Um, it wasn't until later that I began to realize that, it's not quite like that. And of course, you find out that things are. And the one thing about the OJ case was that was everybody's legal education, because at that time, DNA was something absolutely new. Now it's routine. But then nobody understood all of that. Now the first thing you'd want to do is say, "Well, did you get the DNA from that or something like that?"
Hmm.
And so that kind of brought it back to it. And also, the things that the defense had showed was that the police may not exactly be your friends.
Yep.
Um, and then you begin to find out there are other things that are a little different. And then when you have real life experiences with the legal system, you discover firsthand that it's not exactly like they do it on television. I remember I had to go to a court once, and there was a whole bunch of Navy guys who were there too. And the judge who was going to hear the cases was held up with something, and it held up and held up. So the bailiff, who looked like he had been born back when Plessy versus Ferguson was the case, and he might have worked on that one. He was that old. and he was not in the best. He was not living his best day that day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all these Navy guys, they were saying, "Well, you're going to have to come back in 2 weeks because the judge can't see it today." And they were all saying, "Well, we're going to be at sea then, and we're supposed to be here and that's and the other." And they were whining about that. And he just said, "Hey, if you didn't do something wrong, you wouldn't be here." And I said, "Okay, so much for guilt, innocent until proven guilty."
Right.
Find out that there is a lot more nuance that goes along with it. You find out that 90% of the cases are pleaded out before you don't even make it to a courtroom. Uh, and you find out the biggest misnomer is that on every, and they still do that to this day, every legal show is that you get arrested today and then next week your trial starts. And it's not like that at all. I had to tell my coworkers back during the Trump impeachment trial where they kept going on and on. They were waiting for a verdict because it's been on for 3 days. And I said, well, it doesn't work like that in real life the way it does on TV. So that's the biggest misconception you find out. And then you find out that it's a lot of a business. And I think the two popular media things I saw that kind of changed my view of how court works was, and I think one of the best, to my non, trained thing, but looking at it for what they did was the verdict with Paul Newman and James Mason
Mm-hmm.
about this down and out lawyer who is legally going around to people's funerals to pass out business cards to get a
Mm-hmm.
case going. And he looks into this case. All he has to do is show up, enter a plea, and leave. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And everything has been decided by this big firm
Mm-hmm.
that's handling the case for this hospital. And for some reason that even he doesn't understand, he decides that he's not going to go ahead and just take this boilerplate thing into it. That he is actually going to process it. So the first thing this big firm decides to do is, okay, if he doesn't do what we want him to, we'll destroy him. And they spend a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the movie absolutely backing him
Mm-hmm.
up against the wall and everything. And of course, because it's Paul Newman, he prevails. But you realize that that it is the law, but it's not necessarily a level playing field, or people don't
Mm-hmm.
play fair, and that
Mm-hmm.
it's more is more concerned with results than it is with justice. And a thing that I used to do was whenever I met a lawyer, I would always ask them if you had a client that you knew was guilty. And although I found out apparently you never ask your client if they did it because, of course, if they did, yeah, I did that, you're obligated to report it. So you never ask your client if they're guilty, but I said, and you knew that your client was guilty, but you also knew that the opposition had missed something legitimately that you could get your client off with that. Would you do it? And I only had one person who said if it was something that really bothered you morally, you could excuse yourself from it. But everybody else said, yeah, because your job is to get your client off. It's legally if you can, but that's it. So it's not so much about that we're saying, yeah, Lady Miss Justice and stuff. Yeah, we did you a good one and stuff. It's kind of like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
got this one off. So that was one, and the other one was civil action with John Travolta and Robert Duvall. Was the
Yeah.
at the time I had seen a close-up thing of how the slip and fall lawyers work, and you find out the things like they're going to take most of the money if they get a thing, and that they're
Mm-hmm.
looking at the clock is running the whole time. And if it looks like this is going to cost them more than it's worth to do that, they're less concerned with, justice prevailing than we are of, turning a profit on this. And you realize that it's a calling and it's kind of a game too, and that the basic is that you need to get your client off no matter what.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
took a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
True story. Penelope, when she came out of law school, wanted to belong to that big firm in the verdict. She wanted to be a member of that firm, and she realized her dream out of law school. Number two is you when you tell a lawyer that you're guilty, that you did it, a lawyer is not uh, obligated or supposed to. Actually, you're not supposed to tell
Right.
anyone because it's attorney-client privilege, it's privileged information. The
Hmm.
reason that a lot of attorneys don't ask their clients whether they did it or not because they deem it irrelevant to the case
Yeah.
since the prosecutor has the burden of proof, and
Right.
that's why a lot of defendants never take the stand because it's not their burden to prove that they're not guilty. And then number three is that most law firms in personal injury cases, like the case in civil action, take 40%. It's a big chunk.
Mhm.
Hmm.
It's not most, but it's a huge amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and because a lot of those firms take the cases on contingency, they're spending the money up front on all the investigation. They're spending the money on any of the expenses that have to be paid out. All that is being fronted by the firm, so it is a business. So once, like in civil action, they I mean they spend everything. They spend all the way down. I
Mhm.
remember civil action. One of the partners had to take his child's what is it, the coins they collected, the coin collection with a child, and cashing it in to continue to be able to keep business running to try to get that case settled. The unfortunate thing, of course, in civil action, a very old film that I'm getting ready to spoil, that the partner who brings in the case, he is at the beginning the most cynical,
Mhm.
but then he does the thing that some of us do, which is we get caught up in the case itself, listening to the client. The thing is that the only justice, like he says, that we can get you is money. We can't get an apology. We can't get any of that. All we can get you is money. But then he gets into the ethics of what it was that was done. And of course, in the final analysis, that lands him, out of his firm, and kind of on his own. And even after I think the thing I like so much about the film is that even after he's off the case, everything's all done, the settlement has already gone through, that he's sitting at a restaurant with his one little thing, his transistor radio, and someone spills water at a table, and then the waitress has to come and clean it up. And because all this was about a spill, a chemical spill. And he starts thinking, wait a minute, somebody had to clean it up. So the issue is who cleaned up? Not them, they're never going to admit they did the spill, but find out who it was that cleaned it up. And then, even though he was no longer involved, couldn't do anything, case already resolved, he took everything that they had and sent it to the EPA. And now it is a different kind of case. Now we have an agency that has unlimited funds to bring the hammer down. So even though these plaintiffs could not get anything but money, now they have an agency that can come in and get the thing they wanted, which was justice. So that I love that in that film. And
Well, so it's about
yes,
resources. A lot of it about resources, and
yes.
I'm surprised the panel is not aghast that you wanted to belong to that large firm in the verdict.
What in
I
Concannon's
just,
firm? What is it?
yeah, the
Concannon's?
devil, Satan, or something, the evil,
The Prince of
the prince of
Darkness.
darkness. This
Yes.
this woman wanted to belong to that firm, y'all. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And came out and
Doesn't
came out of law school and joined one of those firms.
did not surprise us.
Yeah. It
Well,
shouldn't.
That's
It shouldn't.
awful. That's bad.
but it's because it makes it seem so attractive because we buy into into the PR and everything that we're doing good. A friend of mine was in an accident where a Comcast truck hit a bus, and what nobody was injured. It did more damage to the bus and the truck than anything else. But she got with one of our local slip and fall firms and everything. And so, in addition to finding out later that they get paid, of course, before you get paid, but she found out things that they were saying that, we send you to a physical therapist to look at your injuries and
Hmm.
stuff. Well, it was a guy that had an office in a strip mall that was mostly deserted. He was never there whenever she went, but she found out that he was charging her for a session even though he wasn't there. and B, they had a deal with the law firm handling it that they would take all of those fees for those visits that she never got out of whatever the settlement she got.
Yeah, that happens. That happens. It's not good.
That's
But
why
you
they're
know,
called shysters.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, especially if nobody got injured in the bus.
Hmm.
Nobody was. So why did she go to an attorney? She wasn't injured.
It was a thing about he's one of those people that ran ads and stuff. He called himself Doc
Uh,
Tony. He ran these ads, like 50 times, 9 times a day, about how before you call the hospital, call me and I'll take care of everything. So she figured, of course, it was going to be a big settlement and she could retire from whatever they were going to get because they had the local transportation company and Comcast and everything.
mhm.
So we're talking about unlimited money. But I think she got like maybe like $800 or something like that after they took
Wow,
all the fees out.
wow, not good.
But she was under the impression that yes, she was going to be set for life at with whatever settlement they got for this, you minor fender bender.
What's crazy
Hmm.
is like these billboards that show, I'm the Texas Hammer, and I got
Hmm.
$500 million or $50 million for a client who was brain damaged in a car wreck.
So they're not going to be able to spend that. You do realize that. I mean, that money is basically going to be taken care, used to take care of that person for the rest of their life. They're not going to be going to Tahiti for vacation. This is money that's used to pay for that person's care for the rest of their life, and that money may not be enough.
Hmm.
And that's the thing that people don't
I mean, yeah,
understand.
would you rather somebody hit you in the head with in the brain with a hammer and give you $50,000, or just not have somebody hit you in the brain with a hammer?
Yeah, I prefer not to be hit. Thanks.
Hmm.
Yeah, because the money they talk about, I mean, I mean, my our daughter is in her late 20s, mid 20s, like mid 20s, and when she was born, she had to be put in a neonatal unit. And how much was that? Like 2 months, and it
Yep.
was almost $300,000.
No, it was
So
it was close to 500,000 almost.
yeah, and so these are people they're telling you they got all this money. It does not go far. It does not go far. So that stuff too, as we watch
And you can't
television and
enjoy it.
movies,
How
yeah,
do you enjoy it when you're brain damaged?
yeah, or but your body's injured. I would prefer not to, have my leg crushed than to get $1 million. I would rather be able to walk around on my legs.
Well,
Thanks.
would you? I mean,
Yes.
some people may gamble that. Like, I'll take $5 million to have my leg crushed.
No, that's okay. I'll keep the leg. I
Well, there
could live a
was,
very, very long time. My family was a long time. I could be in this earth for a very, very long time with, intermittent pain and all this kind of stuff, and then have to rely on other people to get me from place to place. No thanks.
well, I know
No.
there are people. One of my classmates was a guy who had a casual relationship with employment, and he was one of those people who would get a
I
job
like that.
at a house or something, and he would look for an opportunity to get injured, just so he could get your case and stuff. And I think the last one that I knew of that he did was he allowed somebody to back into him with a forklift.
Oh my
Why
god!
is he nuts?
Well, the
I mean,
idea,
like physically, like physically back into him.
yeah. Well,
I
yeah,
mean, not he wasn't in another vehicle. His
no,
actual body.
it was a warehouse, and apparently the guy was allegedly backing up with the forklift, and he was supposed to be physically moving something around, and the guy
Wow.
didn't see him, so it backed into him, and of course the it had damaged his leg, and he was walking around with a cane and everything, and it wasn't he wasn't ever going to play basketball again or anything like that,
Oh
and
yeah.
but he figured that sooner or later, just to settle the case because of the nuisance value and stuff, he would get enough to set him up for a while and everything.
Wow.
We had a neighbor once that back in the days
Well,
when
wait a minute. How much did he get?
I don't know how much he got or if he got anything at all because they will have people following you around to see, well, you can do
That's
this,
true.
but you can't, but you're supposed to be injured. We had a neighbor back in the days who back when cars were all made out of iron and were half as big as a Winnebago or everything, that they
Mhm.
would go out and they would deliberately let somebody run into them and settle out of court, so their insurance wouldn't go up. And whenever they needed money, something like that, they would go, get hit and for $200 and stuff, and which was real money back in the day and stuff. But that's what people will do. There are people that
Wow.
a viable form of income is what is essentially insurance fraud.
Litigation queens or kings and queens, I guess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Has anyone on the panel served on a jury before?
Yeah, I have.
What
It
kind of
And
wasn't.
case was it?
It was a car accident type, well, drunk driving type of thing, and I remember sitting on the jury thinking, I know this isn't Law and Order, but this lawyer can't be just can't be this boring, not spitting out any facts.
What?
It's like her presentation was so dry, and I remember saying in the jury room, I'm not expecting Law and Order type things or Perry Mason type things, but
Okay.
at least capture my attention when you're trying to give us the
Wow.
well, do
facts.
you? I think. Do you think that's a problem that people go into court and they expect to be
Expect that.
entertained?
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's an
Yeah, I
issue.
think people do expect law the well, at least the jury, and they couldn't understand why he's not taking the stand. I'm like, he's not taking the stand because probably he's not gonna we because he didn't take the breathalyzer, so they couldn't prove that he was drunk when
Yeah, he doesn't
he
have to take the
caused the
stand.
accident. So he didn't have to take the stand, probably because he couldn't use the excuse, "Oh, I have an accent, so I sounded like I was drunk," or whatever. So if you
Yeah,
don't
but
talk, we
yeah,
can't make a decision on that because they kept
yeah.
saying, "Well, he sounded
But
drunk."
see, that's a
Well,
problem.
unless
That's a
we don't
problem in Law
hear
and
him,
Order.
we can't go on that.
Mhm.
That's a problem in Law and Order,
Yeah.
which is totally not the system at all. Criminal justice system is that number one, most cases are settled, or most cases are
Mhm.
pled. They're pled. People plead,
Mhm.
whatever probation or whatever, and if you do go to trial, the defendant never takes the stand because
Yeah.
number one, the burden is on the prosecution to prove the
To
case.
prove you did
That's
it,
number
not
one,
that
and
you
then
don't have to prove you didn't.
number two, that when they have you on the stand under oath, they can ask you a number of things to make you look horrible.
That have
Hmm.
And
nothing to do
so,
with the case.
yeah, that's why defendants
Mhm.
don't take the stand in criminal cases. They just don't. That's why
It's
Donald
not
Trump
to
didn't take
benefit.
the stand. That's why
Why
O.J.
OJ
Simpson didn't
didn't
take
take
the
the
stand.
stand? Because nothing you can do will help your case. Nothing you can say will help your case.
But Wayne Williams, who was accused in Atlanta child murders, he did take the stand. He
You
went to
saw how much
jail.
that helped him. Yeah. Yeah, you don't take the stand.
But on Law and Order, they always
Hmm.
take the stand. And I think when you have juries and people, making decisions in court, they expect the defendant to take the stand. If he's innocent, he or she is innocent, they need to take the stand.
Yeah, but the reality is that you don't take the stand because you are presumed innocent.
Hmm.
They must presume that you have not done it. The prosecution must prove that you have.
But people
And
expect that you will, and if you don't,
Of course, you're going to defend yourself, type thing.
right,
Well,
exactly.
I know.
yeah, of course I understood that, but at least capture hold the jury's attention when you're trying to give out some of the facts so that they can make the decision you want.
Right.
I could look over at my jury member peers and they were dotting off and falling asleep. I'm like, well, he's
Oh
not going to get
no.
convicted because she just didn't have.
'Cause court is boring. If you
Yeah, it
if you
Hmm.
really
not if
is.
you're not in it, if you're not the person going whose life hangs in a balance, it's
Yeah.
kind of it's kind of boring.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Well, the
really
other
is
thing that
exciting.
happens is you find out that again our expectations of what real court is like is again from television, and realize it's not really like that. My nephew had been killed in a robbery, and they did have it was in an area that was near a newly opened housing project that had security cameras, and so the killing was recorded on the security camera. You just like they always say, well, so they're really good at doing this on FBI, where it says, okay, well, log into that ATM across the street from the crime scene and stuff, and see what you get on that. So it the did pick up everything that happened. Unfortunately, the camera did not have the kind of resolution where they can count the freckles on
Mm,
your nose, and they couldn't tell which of the three people who were involved with the crime was doing it. So they're all pointing fingers at each other, and that was it. So it's saying, yeah, we do have that, but we can't say which one of you was the one who actually did it because
wow.
on this camera you all look alike.
Can only enhance so much.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You all look alike, huh? There, doing
Yeah.
that. Yikes.
Yeah, but I think people come to court. You serve on juries. I think that the expectation is that the defense attorney will be passionately defend their client, and if it's not that, then they presume. I think that maybe the defendant is guilty.
Huh?
Well, but this guy was really good, and he would have been he would have been somebody that came from Central Casting. He had this really nice suit. And he wore this really
Hmm.
expensive pair of pointy leather boots, the ones that said that the toes are so pointed you could kill a roach in the corner.
Okay.
Um, and he was personable. He was folksy. He was kind of like the slickest Matlock you ever saw. But he could turn things up that we were sitting there in the audience saying, in the gallery saying, "Wait a minute." Um, he would throw these things up to create reasonable doubt that you wondered why the defense didn't call them on that or something, because he was saying this thing about, well, if the three people who were accused of doing the killing were standing there, why were they texting each other with the victim in the standing there? And nobody pointed out the fact is, well, if you're talking about how you're going to kill somebody in their presence, you probably don't want to hear them to hear them discussing that. And he managed to put that out there to create enough reasonable doubt that they ended
Hmm.
up settling the case because they felt that he'd gotten a mistrial once in the previous case, and they feared they were going to get it again. So they decided to get him to plead it out to time served plus, I think, 10 years or something like that.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I
some
mean,
get engaging defense lawyers who are in the law and order model that every defense attorney is always sleazy no matter what.
Oh
oh
yeah.
But
yeah,
Yeah.
that
do that.
when I was watching Fox News when this verdict came out,
Hmm.
um, I guess the language they use or the tagline they use is that in New York City, all judges are former defense lawyers. So, if you think that all defense lawyers are sleazy,
Hmm.
then that fits right into their thought process.
Yeah. Except that Trump had defense attorneys.
Yeah, but his defense attorney are better, and also they're former, some are like former prosecutors. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's kind of rough, kind of contortionist thought process there going.
right.
The-
But
So I mean,
Sonia said you served in a jury, and
Hmm.
when you served in a jury, do you think the jury system, do you think it works? I mean, do you think it's an adequate way to determine whether somebody's guilty or not guilty?
Short of Minority Report, it's the only system that we've got.
Hmm.
So I think it can be improved. And that would also require lawyers to not step up the game, but at least most lawyers that are in that system on a regular basis are not storytellers. And you have nowadays, people need the story to guide them along so that they can see step by step by step, as opposed to
mhm.
just calling out dry facts. I think they're so used to dealing with the dry facts that that's all they can present, not
Mhm.
thinking that, wait, we're supposed to be the peers deciding We don't know all of these facts. We don't understand what they mean. It's not that we're stupid. We just, that's not our frame of reference. So you have to give
Sure.
us a frame of reference so that we can follow whichever story you want us to follow.
Hmm.
And I was impressed with. We know we're not talking about this verdict, but I listened to some of the transcripts of this verdict and some of the other verdicts that have been going around, and talked to the um, state attorney who was handling my friend's case when he was a victim of a home invasion. He told the story. That's what got the gentleman finally convicted after 4 years. He told the story so that the jury could follow along and understand what was going on.
So when you're watching, for instance, television shows like the Law and Orders and all this stuff, that's the thing that you have an expectation that the people will come in and tell a story. That's what you're looking
It's
for.
not it's something to hold the attention so that we don't fall asleep and miss what you're trying to tell us or zone out, you know.
Hmm.
That's interesting because in criminal cases, the prosecution goes first. So what if what if they're boring? In
If
reality,
they're boring, yeah.
if I'm defended, if I'm defense attorney, I really don't have to do anything. I
Right.
just sit there. So if the prosecution is boring and I say, Judge, I got nothing. This guy's got nothing. So
Right.
Hmm. How about you,
And it,
Rock? How about you, Roxanne? From your perspective, before and after, did your perspective change as a result? Like if you've seen television, boy, this is what I want to do for a living. Did it change afterwards?
Um, no, because except for Perry Mason, I never watched any of those shows.
Hmm.
Um, my first, it wasn't, let's call it half televised.
Hmm.
My introduction to the legal system was Watergate. Um, glued to the TV every night, listening to the commentary. That back then they weren't allowing cameras in any courtroom, but they still had court artists to do the
Hmm.
sketches.
Yes.
Listening to, like I said, the commentators and things like that, because you're not going to talk to the attorneys, obviously. And that was my introduction to the legal system. The it wasn't just the nightly news. I mean, this thing was like a couple hours, 3 hours long. They go into the arguments, blah 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 blah. So, and since it's all public record, since it's a court, they didn't have to worry about giving away any secrets or anything like that.
Hmm.
So,
But
no, it what? Go
was
ahead.
was it different for you once you actually were in the process? Did you say, "Huh, that stuff I saw on television and film really wasn't at all what I expected when it did not set me up for what I actually discovered in the practice."
No, because I never thought it would be like that. Because I didn't go into that kind of law. I'm a policy wonk. I'm not. I've been in a courtroom maybe twice. Once for a case in the Southern District of New York, and I was a paralegal spectator. And the second one is with my second divorce. Those are the two times I've been in a courtroom. And but like I said, I mean, I do, you know, what my field was is really rather arcane and esoteric.
Mhm.
Um, so no, there was no expectation of whether it's like TV or it's not, because I'm not a litigator. Never wanted to be a litigator.
Me either, but that's where
Litigation
I
was
was.
litigation was boring to me.
Yep,
You
but
know,
that's what they were paying the
I'm
money.
like, look, Judge, I'm right, he's wrong. Let's get out of here and go have a drink. You know, I just couldn't deal with that.
Well, that was the other thing to me in a real courtroom that was so different than what you see in the media. Because at my nephew's, at the trial for the people in his case, I don't know if they changed the situation then, but they didn't have the defense and the prosecution sitting at different tables. They had this huge table in the middle of the courtroom, and the prosecution was on one side and defense was on the other side.
Hmm.
And there was one point where one of the people on the prosecution side got something caught in their throat, and they were trying to clear their throat. And then one of the defense people pushed a bag of cough drops over to the other side of the table. And I'm
Hmm.
sitting there thinking, should you be doing that? Shouldn't you want them to choke to death while they're sitting there? But
Wow.
like these people all know each other and stuff.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say, I
yeah,
was
that's
gonna say
Everybody,
true.
that. Yes,
yeah.
they do. They
It
all
is,
know each
Yeah.
other, and you
and
also have to remember when you're talking about the machinery of the state, the judge, the prosecutors, they also know the cops.
yeah,
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody. I could not imagine trying to be a criminal defense lawyer. I absolutely cannot. What you are up against, and everybody knows that prosecutors withhold evidence. I mean, that's just a given.
Oh yeah.
So, considering what you're up against in the criminal justice system, I don't see how. I mean, unless you're an F. Lee Bailey or who was that guy, Jerry something. Anyway, those flamboyant,
mm,
Johnny Cochran,
Hmm.
one of these flamboyant. Unless you're like that, I don't see how they make it. I really
Well,
don't.
well, my first foray into litigation or even criminal cases was in New York City, and when I came to the criminal courts building, New York criminal courts building that you see on Law and Order, it looked like a cathedral to me. It was one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen in my life. And of course, going in, they have a line of people, regular people, and then they have a line for lawyers, and you feel special because you get to cut the line. And if you go to night court, you get to see some of the most strange things you've ever seen in your life. Like back then, the hookers that they would take off 42nd Street, hookers dressed like a cheerleader and somebody dressed like a ballerina, and all these strange outfits. It's the most weird thing you've ever seen in your life. And as far as prosecutors are concerned, I, I learned not to have any let's say respect for them for the most part, and a lot of their persona is based on television shows, and they get undercut. They can get undercut by a defense attorney very easily by just the defense the defense, defense attorney saying, "Prove it. That's it. Prove it. If you got
Well,
charges, prove it."
the other thing about prosecutors is they are graded on the number of cases they win.
Hmm.
And it's not about justice in this
Right.
case. It's about how
No,
many
and
cases
that's
did
why
I
they're
win.
bad. That's why in my mind, that's why they're bad. It's like you take cases to court. You're relying on the defense counsel either being too busy, so they plead out, or they go to trial and they're not prepared because the caseload. But if push come to shove, if you ask them to prove it, they can't prove it. But they'll go to court anyway. They'll take you to trial anyway.
And then of course, a lot of the DAs. I mean, once you go higher up in the hierarchy, they're bucking for governor or something like that.
Hmm.
So this is a springboard.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, a governor or judge,
Hmm.
Yeah,
especially
whatever.
city of New York. A lot of the judges are either prosecutors or former legal aid lawyers. So
Right, right,
and that's who that is. I mean, that's their springboard. They have no intention of being a practicing attorney for the remainder of their life.
right.
Right.
They want a nice cushy job with a pension. But the thing that the difference for me is between TV and real life is the way prosecutors are viewed. They're viewed as upstanding, upright,
Hmm.
individuals, not the people that we know in real life in our practice, people who withhold evidence, the cops who lie,
Oh
put their
yeah.
hand on the Bible and lie,
Hmm.
um, defendants who lie to you.
Hmm.
That's why you never ask them if they did a thing because It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter. You're probably going to get a lie, so why ask? You know, I mean, it's a lot of it is is uh, it's almost like a house of worship. If you go to certain courts, if you go to probate court, the probate court in Dallas is very dark and and it looks like almost like a wake. You know, it's old furniture. It's old, really old, and a lot of marble
Uh-huh.
and wood paneling, and it's dark.
Uh-huh.
Everyone speaks in hushed tones. So
Yeah.
you know, a lot of it, you know, depends on the city that you're in
Yeah.
and the court that you're in.
Yeah.
Um, I would go up against any New York City prosecutor, and I think that they're probably the best there is in this country. And I think based on that, I wouldn't have any problem going up against any prosecutor in any other state because I think that, you know, the simple truth of it is that it's your burden to prove. You go
Yeah.
first. It's your burden. You didn't prove your case. Case dismissed.
Yep. Fun, fun, fun till your daddy takes your T-bird away.
Mic drop. Boom.
But they don't show that on TV. They always show the folks defending themselves, and which
Hmm.
Well, you
would
don't see what
further
order people
incriminate.
go in. You don't see what order people go in either. Like you said,
Yeah.
you want to be told you want to be told a story, lay out a story. This is what happened.
Right.
Instead, the prosecutor is relying on the fact that they represent the people and they represent the state, and you know they got all this evidence and all this weight behind them
Right.
and the authority behind them, and it's intimidating to a lot of people. It's intimidating to a lot of juries, and intimidating to defendants, and that's why defendants plead guilty because the dichotomy is presented to them as who's going to believe you? This you know prosecutor that has six ADAs and the police and all this evidence, or you? Who the jury going to believe?
Yep. And you see that on television too. I mean, even like say the thing with the movie The Verdict. Yeah, you see that. This powerful, well-oiled machine on one side of the courtroom that obviously has the favor of the judge. But then you have on the other side this other individual who is by himself with one assistant, his
Yeah.
A bad
experts.
suit, a bad
Yeah,
suit.
his experts not looking quite so lovely, and they're hoping that this carries weight with the jury. And basically, this case turns on, these are the facts. You've seen it all. He's bringing the evidence. They're objecting, and the judge is sustaining the objections. Which are, you know, he's like, what the heck is going on? He's making his exceptions for appeal, but when the judge is constantly saying, sustaining these objections, the jury's looking at you in your badly tailored suit, figuring, your unshaven face, figuring that you obviously are the problem, right? So yeah,
Well, you
it's
know, do you think? I mean, after the O.J. Simpson verdict, it was people said, well, you know, O.J. got the best defense that money could buy. So you
yep.
think you would think that Donald Trump would get the best defense that money could buy, and so if that's the case, is that if that's the barometer, OJ got off.
Hmm.
Why is it that Donald Trump he got the best defense that money could buy? Right, he got money. Why couldn't he get?
No, because he doesn't pay his attorneys. So nobody wants to be involved in that. And so I will come in here and I will do this work and I will not get paid. And
You
this,
see.
after all, is a business. And
Yep.
I am not representing someone who has a history and reputation
But
for
wouldn't you
not
take
paying
that
their
case?
attorneys.
Don't you think if F.
No,
Lee Bailey was alive today, he'd take that Donald Trump case?
no, he would not, because F. Lee Bailey was about getting paid. He was about his money. He would not have
Right.
taken that case.
So was
Yeah.
Jerry, whatever his name was.
Yeah,
These
I remember
people,
Jerry from Colorado, right?
Yeah.
yeah, yep,
The guy
he's
who did
about
the
his money.
trial advocacy court.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
These people are about their money. This is a business. They
You don't
have
think
things that
that
they would do for,
was it
but they
Jerry
have
Spence?
things.
Jerry
No,
Spence?
Jerry Spence, yeah, and they would do things. Certainly, they're pro bono cases, but
But you
they
don't think
want to
you would
decide when
take
it's
the
pro
you would take the
bono,
case?
not you because you
You
aren't going to pay.
you would take the case just because of the publicity? I mean,
No,
Anthony
no,
Bailey,
No,
Anthony
no,
no.
Bailey represented Anthony
no.
Bailey represented the Boston Strangler. The Boston Strangler didn't have any money to pay anybody.
Yeah, but that's different. That's a criminal case.
Yeah, and so was Trump's
No, no,
case.
no, 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 no,
Well,
no, no.
in
This is this is a criminal case where someone says, "Did this guy kill these people?" We're not talking about going through thousands of pages of documents. Then with a client who is going to lie and lie and lie and lie after all the work you've done, you say, "Wait a minute, well, what about this? Oh, well, I forgot about that," and undermining everything that you're going to do with regard to your defense. Nobody's got time for that. Nobody's got money for that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Bottom line, attorneys really do, whether criminal or civil, attorneys really do their best, since it's a business, not to take cases they don't think they can win.
Right. And say, why would I
So,
take and for somebody who will not pay? Why
exactly.
would I do
Well,
that?
so let me ask you this. Let me ask you: think that Anthony Bailey and Johnny Cochran thought that they could actually win the OJ case?
yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they did.
and
Yes,
and
they
they
did.
earned every penny they got. There was a story they said that when the prosecution decided they wanted to take the jury on a tour of the crime scene to show, how terrible it was and this, that, the other, that the defense, that by Cochran, had said that that's going to prejudice the jury. So if you're going to take him to the murder scene, we need to take them to OJ's house to show that he couldn't possibly do this. And the smart thing was, of course, that before he did that, Cochran had his people go through OJ's house, and they came back and told him that it doesn't look like a black person lives there. So
Hmm.
they went out and they moved things out of OJ's house, and they put in pictures and art pieces and things from Cochran's office and his house. It looked
Wow.
like somebody lived there because OJ only had pictures of him and his white friends on the wall and everything. So they had to make it look
Yep.
like a black person actually lived there. So yeah, so they earned whatever they got for
Right.
getting him for putting their case forward. They got it, but that's the thing you do when you have a vigorous defense.
And that costs
And
money.
the other thing you have to remember about the OJ case is the procedural stunk a mile wide.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
anybody could see that. I mean, first of all, Mark Furman, he was a well-known racist who was out to get OJ. He had basically said that. You're talking about the chain of evidence
Hmm.
that was totally
What a
screwed up.
mess.
Yeah, but
I mean,
Roxanne, you
what?
in the Trump case, you had his former lawyer who admitted that he previously lied under oath. So
Okay.
he's a less than reliable witness. And you have a porn star who has sex for money.
But that was the whole point. That she
Yeah,
was a porn star that had sex for money. And he had sex for money with a porn star. That
right.
was
And
the
then
whole
disguise, and
point.
then tried to disguise it as legal fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that say about him? Not the it's not the sex. The whole thing was not about the sex with the porn star. It was about he tried to disguise the hush money as legal fees.
Well,
That's illegal.
but Roxanne, it's the same thing with the OJ case. It wasn't about Furman saying the N word. It's about whether OJ killed his wife or
No,
not.
no, 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 no.
That's only
Okay,
part
let
of it.
me. No,
Well,
all
I mean,
right. Let me.
that's only part of it. Because in my perspective, we had the beginning of this case where we have prosecutors saying that we're going to win this on this evidence, this the blood evidence and stuff like that we have, and then we have the ME come on and say, well, you have this blood and the bloody sock, right? Here's the bloody sock. So here's the sock, and it has blood on it. So, but the blood is on the top and the bottom of the sock. It could not have gotten on the bottom of the sock if a foot was in it. In other words, someone took the sock, sat it down somewhere, and poured blood on it. And the blood has preservative in it. You know, kind of like the preservative that we use in order to preserve the blood. We take the blood sample, like from that blood sample vial that's missing.
Mhm.
So they put all their eggs in the basket of this evidence, this blood evidence, and found out that the blood evidence was false. And Mark Furman was important because he was the one, of course, who had the blood evidence. So him saying these things did have bearing on this entire case because somebody could say, oh, it could just be a mistake. Somebody dropped it. No, you had an individual who was within that chain of custody who had who had stated specifically that he had malintent, and then revealed
Exactly.
it.
Mark
because
Furman's
he said he
statements go
never.
to state of mind and his intent, and
Hmm.
that intent is what broke his case. Because he
Yeah,
said, look, the sock is the blood on the sock is real and fake at the same time. It
right.
didn't, if it did, the blood on the sock could not have happened the way they said it happened. Mark
Exactly.
Furman was the person in charge or whatever like that. And he had said that I am going to get OJ. So
Yeah,
what does that
they
tell
can
you?
infer. They can infer that this guy
Mhm.
who was within the chain of custody
Precisely.
took this missing vial of blood and poured it on the sock. And because he's not too bright, he didn't think about the fact that if the blood had fallen on the top of his foot, it could not have touched the bottom of the foot
Well,
if
well,
the
if
foot
you're
was
a
in the
lawyer
sock.
and you're starting out, you want to make a name for yourself. You mean to tell
Mhm.
me that you wouldn't represent Trump in this case?
You know what? I don't understand why you keep asking the same question over and over again,
No,
thinking
the
that the
reason I
answer will be
asked is
different. And
because
the
you have
answer is
F.
still
Lee.
the same.
Well, you have F. Lee Bailey,
The
who has a
answer
great.
is still
Well,
number one.
let me
So you have
finish.
F. Bailey, but O.J. Simpson was not a poor man.
No, I'm not talking about
Okay,
O.J.
he
Simpson
had
now.
money. He had.
I'm
I know.
talking.
I'm just saying that he had resources. Everybody knows that Trump, even if he had resources, was it was reputational for not paying people, for
and
racking
not
up debts and not paying them.
and not telling the truth.
Yes.
Well, I'm saying
See,
about well,
Otto. But the thing, what you're missing is, you said that. What about if we have an attorney who's just starting out? Wouldn't they want the notoriety, if you will, for
yeah,
defending Trump? Well, no, because the attorney's got to eat.
Hmm.
right.
I mean, notoriety isn't going to feed you or your kids.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, talking about F. Lee Bailey, right? So F.
Mhm.
Lee Bailey represents the Boston Strangler. He
Okay. I mean,
represents Pat. What?
are
Hold
you
on a
gonna
second.
wait?
Hold
Wait.
on.
Wait. No. 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 Let me ask you a question.
I,
Are you gonna keep asking this question until we say, "Oh yeah, okay,
no,
yeah"?
no, no. I'm just gonna. No, this is a
No,
different
just say it
question.
then, so I don't
Let
have to
me
keep
finish.
answering
Let me
it.
finish the question I'm
Let
gonna
me go.
ask.
Yes, I would take the Trump case right away, right
No,
now,
no, no.
even
I'm
after
talking
he's
F.
lost.
Lee. No,
I
no.
would
I'm
take it
talking
on
about.
appeal.
No,
Will
I'm talking
that
about F. Lee.
make me
No, I'm
stop
talking about.
asking this question?
No, I'm talking
Huh?
about No, I'm talking about reputation. Though. So you have
Hmm.
F. Lee Bailey, who took the Boston Strangler case. He has the Patty Hearst case, and I think he has a case where the Army colonel, was accused of killing his wife. But you don't see F. Lee Bailey as a loser. You see F. Lee Bailey as a winner. A lawyer can manipulate, not necessarily manipulate their reputation, but no one really. If F. Lee Bailey loses your case, it's like it's not F. Lee Bailey's fault. You know what I'm saying? So just reputational. A lawyer can reputate. If a lawyer comes in and take a hard or difficult case, how much does the jury put into the reputation of the attorney when the
Okay, when you
case?
ask that question, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
If you were an attorney who had a great reputation and you took all your time building it up, would you waste, employ that reputation to get someone like, the orange one off?
Oh hell no! I ain't trying to know. I
And
don't
that's
need
the
them.
thing, these
I don't
people,
need them. Nah,
would you do it? And say,
no,
no, say I wouldn't do it.
no. I wouldn't do.
Say
I won't
you,
need. I don't need it. I don't need it. But if he's there's is there are there any great attorneys like that left, like F. Lee Bailey or Johnny Cox? Are there anybody? Is there anyone like that left?
I mean, a lot
It's
of
just
people have
Yeah,
retired, they gotten
That's
the
a
point
good
where they're
question,
done.
Otto.
we
Uh,
still got Ben Crump.
Ben Crump, yeah.
Mhm.
any good
And
attorneys
again,
that great reputations that. that are like known at the
What's his
high
name? Barry. What's his name? Barry. Sheck. Is he still practicing? I
innocence.
don't
He
know.
doesn't. He only helps you after you got
Hmm.
convicted. So an innocence project, but it doesn't seem like there's anybody like those Jerry Spence's, the F. Lee Bailey, the Johnny Cochran's, like all the guys are dead. They got to, the Clarence Darrows,
The
the
celebrity
Pantheon,
lawyers. Yeah, they're all gone.
the super lawyers
Yeah.
that
Now
everybody
we only.
knows.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we have that anymore. Not that I mean, we don't have those anymore. I don't think.
Except the I am not a potted plant guy. I can't remember his name. Brendan Sullivan. I can't even remember which trial it was, but um, he was trying to say something, 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 and he kept getting hushed up. And finally says, I am not a potted plant. That was a quote of the year.
Okay.
Was that a recent case?
No, no, I think this probably in the 90s or something, early aughts, something like that.
Okay.
Well, I think
Only
what's
go ahead.
happened is the legal landscape has changed to the point that you don't get that many uh, marquee criminal cases, and it's all corporate stuff now. I was thinking, just as like, we have about five slip and fall firms that advertise around the clock
Hmm.
locally. And I began to wonder. I said, well, what if you just wanted to sue your next door neighbor for something and stuff? Who would you go to for that? It's hard to find somebody that takes a criminal case anymore. And the slip and fall guys will talk about how much they have won, and they'll try to outdo each other's commercials. The biggest one says they're the biggest uh, law firm in the country, only because they have like licensed their name out like a franchise to
Hmm.
other people. So they're
Yeah.
big that way because they have so many loose associates. And then the other team say, yeah, but we're local. All of our people live right here in the county and everything.
Well,
So
yeah, because
yeah,
there's still people using Johnny Cochran's name, the Johnny Cochran firm.
Yeah. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of
Johnny
firms are like
Cochran.
that.
There's a Johnny Cochran firm in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, but it figures firms like, what is it? What's it? Jones Day. I'm sure that they've been dead for forever.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah, the partners. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, excuse me.
yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
somebody like a Clarence Darrow, who's like the pantheon. Everybody knows, he's like the pantheon of, legal representation, defense
Hmm.
attorney.
Yeah.
He died. He died penniless.
Yeah. And that's why you don't take these cases with these people. You end up, broke. You
Look at
know.
F. Lee Bailey. Look what happened to Bailey.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. These people, they have to get to work into late into life to try to recoup money to be able to live. You know, and live comfortably. He wasn't just living; he want to live comfortably. He believed in that living comfortably thing. So,
He did.
you
He
know,
did believe in live.
yeah,
Bailey had his own jet.
yeah, he believed in living comfortably.
Jerry Spence. That's who it is.
You said
mm,
that earlier. The guy out in Montana or wherever. At one time when I was a younger attorney, he used to do the retreats out
Child
there.
advocacy. Yeah.
Yeah, the retreats out where you had to like do the farm work and feed the animals and stuff. And I said, I would do that, except that I don't want to do that. I just no. I don't
but
want
it's
to
like
do any
Well,
of that.
rebuilding exercise.
I,
Yes,
I don't
well.
want to do any of that.
Let me ask the. I know, Roxanne, you're not a litigator, but even if in an administrative matter, how would you feel going up, and Penelope too? How would you feel going up against a Jerry Spence or Johnny Cochran or F. Lee Bailey? Would you be looking for curveballs? Would you think that I got space, have to pay special attention to what I do, or
No, you just prepare yourself for your case as best you can with all the information that you have. And you have to be fast on your feet. If they try to throw you a curveball, you've got to be able to think of in 3 seconds how you're going to counter it. But if you know your case well enough, if you've done your homework, if you've done your research, then a curveball is not really a curveball. You have an answer.
Penelope,
Uh,
what about you?
well, you know me. Uh, I have found that most um, opposing counsel does not think the same way that we think. You know, they um, they think like people a lot of times who cheat. And when you think like a cheat, you really can't see what's in front of you. You think everything is like some circuitous, tortuous thing when what it is actually always right in front of you. So yeah, I think that you have to again, you got to know your case, but then also you got to be able to see around corners. You have to not just know what it is that the obvious things, but things that they don't even think about. There's a case, I don't know what law books for civil procedure, everybody had evidence. I can't remember which one it was, but they talked about this case where this black guy had been arrested for, I guess, murder these women, and some guy had strangled them with stockings because they went to his house and they saw that he had, stockings in his house, hanging in his house. And some of these things, of course, his defense attorney probably wasn't a black person, because the easy thing to say is like, yeah, because in order to get the waves in your hair, you gotta brush the hair really hard, then put a stocking cap on it to hold the waves in place so that next day you have those waves in your hair, right? But that's cultural. And there are a lot of things that I think are cultural that you have to know in order to manage cases, because people on the other side sometimes do not know these things. And if you're not ready with things, there's something to just information you pick up on the way. I had a case once, and it was a speeding case. It's a regular speeding case. And the officer said that, that and it's my own speeding case, that I was speeding. I said I was not speeding. But the officer said I was speeding. So we get down into the nitty-gritty of it. Okay, officer. And of course, I don't know to ask these questions even before I start, because I don't know where this thing is going. So I asked him, okay, you have this thing. So how did you know that I was speeding? Well, it's the speeding gun, whatever the thing is he has. All right. So how do you know it's correct? He said, because I calibrated it right before. Okay. Well, how do you do that? Okay, I'd had a tuning fork. And so tell me what you did. Hit the tuning fork on the edge of the car and then calibrated it. And I said, okay, is the car made of metal? He said, yes. And Erica said, okay, now, weren't you told when you were given the tuning fork that if you hit it on metal, that it will change the pitch? And he said, yes. So I'm done. I'm done. I said, because no, because you cannot calibrate the radar with a tuning fork that's been altered. And he already admitted that he altered the tuning fork. And I knew about the tuning fork because I play oboe. Because I played oboe, my job in band orchestra was, of course, to do that. You know, we had to do the pitch for the orchestra. You play A440. So A440, you have a tuning fork. You have to hit it on your elbow or on your knee. You can't hit it on anything else. No hard object, because you will ruin your tuning fork. You cannot bang it on a desk. You can't hit it on a chair. Then you got to throw it away. It's no good anymore.
But the crazy thing
Hmm?
is that before that police officer realized what he had done, you imagine the people that have he gave tickets and stuff to that,
Yeah,
that may not have been speeding
that and like we were
because
not.
his speed gun was not calibrated right.
Yeah, because I wasn't speeding. How I know I wasn't speeding? Because I had a flat tire. How am I? I'm driving on a flat tire. I was not speeding. I had a
You're
flat
like
tire.
James Brown. Maybe you were like James Brown or something.
I don't know. I mean, it's sliding, right? Sliding really fast. So that's what I said. Had a flat tire. How am I speeding? But then I said, okay, well, let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's find out. So the issue is that's just something I knew. And sometimes it gets down to that. something you heard, something you knew, something somebody said, some things you just have no idea, the stuff just that you know. That's
That
regular
was
stuff.
that was my point. I'm sorry. I guess I didn't state it clearly enough. When I say you do your research and all that, I mean everything, the whole world that may have a bearing on your case, whether it's legal, a legal principle or whatever, or not.
Yeah.
You find out about your client. You have
Mhm.
to know your client. Where are they
And
from? How do they think? You
some things
know,
on the other side, like I approach any case where a police officer is on the other side, and I'm going to presume that they may not be 100% truthful
mm-hmm.
about what they're going to say, because not
Oh
just
yeah.
because they're dishonest, it's because they are used to saying certain things and they're told to say certain things. And to them, it's not like they're telling a lie. It's like this is the format that we're supposed to use when we come in and say something. Another case, exactly. Police officer looks inside, says that they looked inside a client's car, saw that the client had some drug paraphernalia. I said, and then that client said, "Hey, what are you doing with my stuff?" And so they said my client was in the back of the car. The stuff the person had was in the front of the car. And I said, so you had the client in the back of the car? Yes. But aren't there louvers on the back window? Yes. So you couldn't see from the back window into the car. So when she said, stop messing with you can't open my stuff, she was talking about the briefcase because she was the confidential secretary of the vice president of a very big corporate entity. And there were documents in the bag that she said you can't open the bag. So she's talking about her briefcase, not anything that you all were digging around in the front of the car, right? And so he had to admit, yes, he had not.
But
She did not say that. So,
but let me ask you this:
but
the
he's
two
used to
lawyers.
saying, but the police officer, of course, they're used to saying a certain set of things, and if
Yeah.
you don't call them on it, they're just going to say it.
Okay. But so my next question, Penelope not gonna like, but it's for the two lawyers. Knowing what you know now, do you think that you would have the skill set to defend Trump and and have a jury rule that he's not guilty?
Me? Oh,
You
sure.
mean actually go into
Me?
court and defend?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, sure. I could do it. I could do
No,
it.
I
Oh,
can't.
oh, I could.
Roxanne,
I could.
you is Roxanne, is it that you wouldn't do it or you couldn't do
I can't. That would be malpractice.
it?
No, no,
Why?
I could. I could do it because my
Why? Because
job.
that's not my field. I don't do litigation.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't do any of that
No,
stuff.
but
yeah.
if
Oh
you
no,
had,
I could do it.
let's say we live in an alternate universe where you were a litigator, okay, and and you were the last lawyer on earth that had a license to practice, and you're Trump's lawyer. Get him off.
Bullshit. Excuse me. Um,
The thing that I thought was interesting about that was, and I think it's the thing that, especially with everything, no matter what it is, gets analyzed to death. All you get is people talking about it, and you just, get tired of it. And so everybody was saying, and I remember that was one of the things that one of your favorite people, Bill Maher, had mentioned, is that when you
uh,
Stormy Daniels on the stand, and they start talking about, Anthony Dorn, the Silk Robe, and all that kinds of stuff, that it was going to alienate the jury with all the lurid details about what happened. And they pointed back all the way back to the Clinton impeachment, where they said when they started talking about the stains and the
mhm.
Altoids and all that kinds of stuff, that the details were just so gross that people were clutching their pearls and they were offended by it, and it would turn them against the prosecution. But I think what had happened was that people are so desensitized with that, considering all the things that are going on now, that they're not really shocked by those things that they hear. And then when you look at the character of the person you're talking about, you say, yeah, it sounds like something that they would do. So I think that was the one thing that that people would have gone against if you're going to try to
Mhm.
like when they tried to paint Cohen and said, "Well, you're a convicted felon and you lied and you this kind of stuff," and he just said, "Yeah, I did that, but I also
So
did."
so you think if this case happened 30 years ago, it might have gone a different way.
It could have gone a different way because then you would have engendered sympathy for the person because you were just piling on, and these things that were so out of everybody's uh, the field of their knowledge or their exposure and everything that they couldn't even imagine something like that happening. But nowadays, yeah, I mean, if you look at all the stuff that's going on with Diddy's case and stuff, yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, okay,
So basically, anybody's capable of doing anything.
pretty
So
much, yeah,
a jury has a more open mind than it did 30 years ago.
yeah. That
Because
everybody's just
I
been
think I
desensitized.
think that's partly because of the internet. I mean, so much
Mhm.
information comes
Mm-hmm.
flying at us, 24/7, and you don't know what's true and you don't know what's not. So I think in that sense, people are more open-minded, not because
Yeah.
they're quote open-minded, but because they're cynical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They
Agreed.
become more cynical than they
Yeah.
were 30,
I
Yeah.
30
mean,
years
I
ago.
think
Yeah.
the thing is with somebody like him, if they were a client, the reality is, I say all these things, say, yes, this is, by anybody's measure, a despicable human being with no morals and no ethics, which means this person also tends to not be very bright. So, in this particular individual's life, all he is a giant id, and he will say and do whatever it is to get the thing that he wants. He's not thinking about these ramifications here. All he's thinking is, I want to hook up with some woman who looks like my daughter.
Oh, that's
And then,
disgusting. Yeah,
no,
just
no, I know, but that's the whole
yeah.
point. To get, I would, my approach would have been to get the jury to look at this individual as the cretin that he is, understanding that this is a walking, talking id.
Well,
And
what it's like, Penelope. Also, it's like
mhm,
when Bill Clinton said, "I did not have sex with that woman."
mhm,
I believed him.
mhm,
Oh, I believe him too. He did not
mhm.
have penetration with that woman.
I mean,
Yeah.
when he said no sex, I mean, I'm thinking somebody's overzealous
No
intern or
sexual
something.
contact.
I'm
That's what
thinking
I'm
no
thinking.
sexual. Yeah, I mean, I'm not
And
playing
he knew
games.
that.
I'm
And
not
he knew
playing
that
games. Yeah,
because
I'm
he
not playing games
and
with sex.
he knew that because he's clever.
That's what I
But
Yeah.
say. Bill Clinton's a smart man.
he's clever.
He knew what to say to
But
get
yeah,
people to
exactly.
believe him.
Yeah, most
Exactly.
normal people think a blowjob is sex. Okay,
Yeah, in my
so
my book,
yeah, in everybody's book.
yeah, that's yeah.
So
In my book it is.
when he said it, I'm like, like Roxanne and Cranston was saying, it's like I believe the guy. I believe what he said, not because
Yes.
I know him or anything, but because the status of the office
That's
of the
right. Why
president,
would I?
the president's presidency, and all this stuff. I'm
And because
thinking,
he had, if any person in his position, as I would think, would say, I am not going to dignify that with a response.
yeah, it's like if you want to, if
Right?
he's the president, he's like John Kennedy, right? So he's like,
Right?
if he's John Kennedy, he's not gonna have sex with some random intern. He's gonna have sex with Marilyn Monroe or
Yeah.
Barbara Streisand or something.
Right. Right.
Why would he? Why would he screw some
Very
intern?
much. We appreciate you joining us tonight. What a great show this has been. We'll be back again next week where our show will focus on,
Roxanne, don't leave.
don't leave, Roxanne, focus on the movie productions of Motown. So, go through your YouTube, see what you can find, and we'll talk about movie productions. We think of Motown as music, but let's talk about the movies that Motown produced. So we'll be back again next week. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll be back again. Thank you for the OTHERhood. Take care and good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
Okay, eventually I am going to turn this off. Once I figure out where my cursor is on the screen, did we have this conversation before with the lost cursor? Good night.